now, Egypt has taken the unprecedented step of floating its currency as it tries to revive its economy. Now, the move by the central bank caught people off guard, but it has been welcomed by the IMF, which demanded the move as one of the conditions of its proposed $12 billion loan. Well, here's what's been happening on Thursday. The Egyptian pound fell more than 32% against the dollar. The country's central bank also increased rates by 3 percentage points to 14.75%, another IMF condition. Well, following the central bank's announcement, Egypt's main stock index, the EGX 30, rose by more than 8%, which is its biggest jump in more than 8 years. But there are worries among Egyptians that this move will lead to higher inflation and make imported goods more expensive. So for more on this, we're joined by John Salevurakis. He joins us from Cairo. He's an associate professor of economics at the American University there. If you would just explain why the IMF would want the Egyptian pound to be floating like this.
Very clearly, it makes sense that there was a fundamental disconnect between the official rate and the black market rate, which often was approaching 18 or 19 pounds to the dollar. Given that disconnect and the lack of faith in the official rate, in order for capital to flow into Egypt, people had to have that faith restored with a convergence between the official rate and the black market.
So as a result of making it a market rate, so to speak, you do expect greater investment?
Assuming that there's faith that the rate that we have now at 1350 holds with what I understand will be an auction on Tuesday. If that rate holds at auction, then the rate would presumably be perceived as legitimate, and then capital would then flow into the country.
But John, what's going to happen to ordinary Egyptians who find the pound in their pocket, as it were, is worth a lot less now? Does that mean inflation necessarily? The price of basic goods and food and fuel and so on going up?
It certainly means an increase in the price of imported goods, and will mean an increase in the price of domestically produced goods to the degree that people substitute for domestically produced goods from imported goods as the price of those imported goods increase. That increase in demand for locally produced goods as a cheaper substitute could push the price in an upward direction. It also means an increase in the price of domestic goods to the degree that those goods are transported by imported fuel.
Well, let me ask you about this IMF loan of around $12 billion. Where will it go? Where will it be spent?
That's a very good question. My initial guess is, in spite of the fact that one of the conditions of the loan is a reduction in subsidies, I imagine a certain amount of that money is going to find its way into the continued subsidization of certain things that will help round off the, for lack of a better phrase, offending edges of the liberalization in the currency market. I would be very surprised if a certain amount of subsidization of fuel were not continued in order to help alleviate the increase in prices of domestically produced goods.
And John, just finally, do you think the IMF should be concerned about how the money will be spent and where it's really going?
Of course, they have to be concerned, but at the same time, the IMF also has to be concerned about social and political stability in the country, and this is not particularly a time in Egypt history where it can tolerate socially dramatically rising prices.
Okay, John Salevurakis in Cairo. Thank you very much for your analysis.